I did. I thought so. I did. Did you put it all right here?
Just little stuff.
Yeah.
Libby put the big amount. I put the food stamp.
All right, first thing on the agenda for the Senior Task Force meeting is reports. And first up is the Community Hospital Work Group. Good evening,
Good
everybody.
evening. I'm going to take this opportunity to deviate from the norm. Valerie, we just think you're wonderful. You're off to Aruba, is it? Jamaica to get married. So we thought maybe you needed a little something from us. And the card, for those of you who didn't get a chance to sign the card, it's still open. And you're allowed to open it. And you're a bright and shining light, so that's what inspired this gift.
Thank you so much.
And there are others who want to sign the card, but you couldn't get it done in timely fashion. So.
Thank you so much.
Open it.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
It's a bikini.
That's what it's beyond is over.
Beautiful.
There's a candle in there.
Is it?
So when you light the candle, you can think of us.
Don't do it now.
You don't know.
I can see his face.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
All right, our group this week visited Bridgeton Hospital, which was a wonderful adventure. Bridgeton Hospital is part of Central Maine Health, along with Rumford and, is there another one? I think in just Central Maine.
Parkview.
Parkview, yes, thank you.
I ain't going to that.
I know. Anyway, used to being on camera. Bridgeton has a wonderful hospital that they paid an architect from Utah to design for them, and there's a wonderful entrance that you come into, and the hospital feeds off of that in the cleverest way. And they are crammed in there, and they're using their space in the most creative ways that you can possibly imagine. They have beds off of the emergency room that are used for some of the outpatient people during the week, but on weekends, it expands the emergency room beds. They're dancing a dance where they're using all of their space in multiple ways. And all of the staff is obviously happy and committed to health care for their people. They have been in constant contact with their community through the growth of that hospital for the last 105 years. Every decision that they make involves people in the community. And they are reaping the rewards of that kind of behavior, if you will. They admit that there are things that they're concerned about that are financial, but they talk to the community about it. And that was the thing that I came away with, was a sense of excitement about what can happen when we all work together on our destiny. They are critical access. They have a booming population because they're in the Lake District, so they got a lot of people who come in to the area. The biggest part of that population are the kids that come to all the camps in the area. I don't know if you know that area, but I worked in a camp there, and they're just millions of kids that come into all of these camps. So in order to reach that group of people, they meet with the camp nurses. They have a tea for the camp nurses. And they all get together and they talk about what the nurses need to know about when they bring the campers in, if they have a stomach flu that goes through the camp, and there are a whole bunch of them that are coming in. They go through how they're going to handle all of that. And they actually have camper day or camper hours in the sort of clinic or in the they have the emergency department, and they have acute care. And the campers tend to come into the acute care area. But they're delivering babies there. They don't have a nursery. The mothers, the baby is born in the mother's room and stays with the mother. It's like a big family unit. And if a baby needs to have special care in a nursery, they are sent out from that hospital. So anyway, we picked up a lot of little interesting hints about use of space, staff morale, but most importantly, how to keep the community involved. And we're off to Rumford tomorrow to see that other hospital. Anyway, it's a very, very beneficial visit. I think by then we will have done all the hospitals. We'll have our last one.
Thank you, Margaret.
You're welcome.
Mike, do you have anything to add to?
Yes. 5-6 hours ago, a group of us met at the Attorney General's office with Janet Mills, the Attorney General of the state of Maine. And we met with Janet and the Assistant Attorney General, Christina Moyen, who is kind of heading up the Attorney General's look at the issues that we've presented. After a very positive presentation here about creating a hospital, quite unfortunately, this is where the road bifurcates. Plan B, the legal solution, but that's why we were there. And we had a very successful meeting. Present at the meeting, which was arranged by our state representative, Bruce McDonald, who can't be here tonight, Jim Chiosis, town manager, Jane Good, Margaret
Parent.
Parent, thank you.
It
I
was
just drew a
Jones,
blank.
which was a whole lot easier.
That's what I was remembering.
Then you married that Parent man.
Tom Barry and myself. And by their questions, it was very, very evident that they've done a lot of homework. They know the issues, they knew the questions. Our 15-minute scheduled meeting turned well into an hour, a little bit more than an hour. And we weren't overstaying our welcome one bit. We presented to them, amongst us, the presentation of the history of the closing, how abrupt it was and so forth, how there was no public involvement in the evolution of the steps toward the closing. We described the difficulty that we have as a community not having any access to their board meeting minutes, to their bylaws, etc. It's an issue that is close to Janet Mills' heart. You may have seen on the news, she is writing a bill presently to, it's a third try in the Maine legislature, to make public records, to make public the hospital records, such as meetings, bylaws, etc. So this really is one of her, if not the most primary example, though she told a horror story about when she was a state legislator, not being able to go to the board meeting of her hospital. As a state legislator, she was appalled, as any of us would be. In any event, it's an issue that's near and dear to Janet Mills' heart. Among the documents we gave her were the Advantage Report, copy of the definitive agreement, an article by the Boston Bar Association regarding the lifespan decision and the fiduciary responsibilities of hospital boards. And most impressively was Jane Good's letter. How many copies?
400
We gave her 400 copies
in 14 days.
in 14 days, and it made an impression, let me tell you. Thank you, Jane.
And there's more out in the envelope.
And there's more.
I got another 50 right in my hot little hand, right here. I'm guarding it with my life.
And people have been mailing them in individually.
Yeah, so there'll be plenty more. The point is that here the Attorney General was receiving 400 signatures amongst a population of 6,000 people. My word, there must be something going on. It did not go unnoticed. We also described the 2,000 signatures on the petition that were collected, the signatures that were collected on Election Day and a few days thereafter. Janet Mills offered several suggestions that we'll be following up on. I'd rather not comment on them right now. And we left knowing that the Attorney General's office continues to look at the issues that we've presented. We didn't go in there looking for a decision, obviously that wasn't going to happen. But we are solidly on their roster, on their to-do list, and so that office is seriously considering the issues that we've presented from this task force.
Thank you, Mike. Anything new from the data analysis group? Okay. Volunteer coordinator, Libby.
Well, you know, a lot's been going on this week. First of all, though, and I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but I just want to remind everybody out there in TV land about the public forum, which is on Tuesday next week at 6:30 in the elementary school gym, and everybody needs to come. You're going to see the volunteers present their second opinion, and there's going to be discussion. And if you care about this hospital, if you care about your health care, you need to come to this meeting next Tuesday night. I'm pleading with you to come.
Tuesday the 26th.
Yes.
6:30.
Okay, I'll leave that alone and let y'all talk about that later. I want to take this opportunity to thank Pam Reed, who's over there in the corner, and Valerie, and Jenny Brown's not here tonight, for the great dinner that we had on Friday night. We had an amazing turnout. We didn't have any food left over, and it was just great. But the best part about it is on Saturday morning, everywhere I went, we went out, my husband and I went out to breakfast, we went to the bank, everybody was talking about it, they were talking about the hospital, and I heard over and over and over again, why would anybody not want to keep this hospital open? And that is what we have to focus on. Then, last time, remember I talked to y'all about Miss Debbie Watson and her little letter writing campaign to her Spruce Wall residents. Well, I want to show you all these petitions that we're getting back from the people that live out of state but have summer homes here. And in addition, she has received $1,130.
Excellent.
So, you know, I got to thinking about that because I live in an association neighborhood, and if Spruce Wall's doing this, maybe some of you other neighborhoods out there ought to take up the challenge and see if you can do a little bit better than Spruce Wall. So, any money is greatly appreciated. Speaking of money, Alice, you want to give us a report on the second opinion?
Sure. As of yesterday, we have raised $24,427.27. What's in the fund right now is $7,802.27. And the remainder needed to be raised is $10,572.27. But we're getting there. This was a big jump this week.
Was that from the dinner?
Not all of it, no, it wasn't. So, you know, that's great, that's just great. The other person I want to recognize is Jane Good. What Jane has been doing with these letters for the Attorney General has been unbelievable. And Jane, I have to tell you, every place I go, somebody is sticking a clipboard in front of my face. They are saying, will you please sign this letter? And I said, I've already done it. So people are out there. I've been at the video loft, and the ladies at the video loft have said, all these people are coming in, they're making all these copies and everything, so it's great. It's great what you've done. And I think you wanted to talk about it a little bit.
I do, because I'm so excited about it, but it also starts with this dinner. I have to say, that was amazing. We had 112 the first dinner, we had 146 the next dinner. And we had new people. I don't know, I'm just feeling this, all kinds of new energy coming to us, and it's exciting for me. So it's like no hesitation signing this letter, new people coming to the dinner. We're far from through with our work here. We just need to keep on going, and it feels good. So, I was just a few things about this. Let's see, well, today was quite a thrill. I just would like to say, meeting the Attorney General and being part of that was a pretty invigorating process. That's pretty exciting. That wouldn't have been on my bucket list, but put it on yours, because it was pretty exciting. And to hand her 400 copies was great. And for Sue Mello for having the picture, not of my body on the front page, but I'll tell you what she loved when she saw that the letters and the picture and our campaign for this letter, and underneath it was an article about her bill. She lit right on it. That was pretty good. So that was well done effort from everybody, I guess. Let's see, I have to thank everybody for signing this petition. When you stand up and you ask people to do something, you just never know how it's going to go. And I love this community. I love everything about it. I've never, since I've been here, asked anything from anybody and not gotten it. But this is overwhelming to me. 400 petitions in 14 days, and you had one place to put them, or come to my house, or whatever. Well, I've expanded that just a little bit. So, I'm getting my act together, folks. I went to a few businesses downtown, and I asked them if they would be willing to put these petitions in their the letters, in their stores. So the deal was you get to put this big heart, Save St. Andrews, in the window so people could recognize. Now, if you see a storefront downtown that has a big red heart that says Save St. Andrews, you know that they have letters inside, so you could pass that information on. I probably should wear it. Let's see, and those businesses that are participating right now, and without a bit of hesitation, Boothbay Region Greenhouse, thank you very much. Eventides, thank you again. Sheer Artistry. I just had great conversations with these people too. It's so inspiring to see our businesses getting behind the task force and our efforts. So that was just great. So Sheer Artistry, Jonathan Edwards Jewelry, Silver Lining, and Grover's. Now, if there are any other businesses out there that would like to participate, we don't discriminate. Just call me. Jane Good, 633-2563. I'll set you up with your little heart and some letters, and we'll keep right on going. One other suggestion that came to me was Facebook. So, out there in TV land, if you have one of my clients said, oh, I've got 600 friends on Facebook. I said, great, get on there and tell them to go to the Boothbay Register site and to punch up the task force, punch up the Attorney General's letter, print out a copy, and send it to the Attorney General. So I met somebody in the video loft today. She was in there, she took one of my letters, she was going over to the copy machine, she made out 25 copies so she could go around and get them signed. And the other woman, as I left, said, I went through my neighborhood and we just mailed 6 copies off. And I'm amazed at the stories that are coming out on the bottom here, this little tiny space. But it overflows into the back. You can write for a day if you want. But, I mean, that's amazing to me that people are, this is so heartfelt, that people are compelled to tell the Attorney General a little bit of their story. This is just such a wonderful grassroots community thing. And to commune and have dinner, and I got 84 signatures at that supper. So it just is, thank you. But let's keep it up. We're gonna take another 400 up there next couple of weeks, so. My goal really is 2,000 for the petition. We had 2,000 people sign that petition. Let's keep going until we get 2,000. So thank you very much.
Hey, Jane.
Yeah.
You know, one thing we can do is we have the email addresses from a lot of the people that sign the petitions, and we can send them an email and direct them to the website to print out the Attorney General letter, and then they can mail that in.
Libby, what a great suggestion. Great suggestion.
You know what's gonna happen, you've got your phone number out there, you're gonna get a call from the Attorney General who's gonna say, help, I'm drowning.
I hope I do. She's a terrific lady. I'd love to get a phone call from her. Okay, that's it. And thank Libby, that's a great suggestion. Thanks, I'll follow up on it. Thanks.
Jim, can you attach that link to the task force Facebook page?
Certainly. How much did we bring in at the supper?
Do you know, Pam?
Yeah. You want me to speak? For all you people that didn't realize it, we had a supper last Friday night. It was the second community supper. We had 157 people. People were standing in line with their plates, and there was no place for them to sit. The couches were full. We were dragging out card tables. I think Robbie went down and got us more chairs from the ambulance barn. I mean, we just had people hanging from the rafters. We made $1,832. Food was fabulous. Everybody, like you said, Libby, everywhere I went, they mentioned how good the supper was, how good the food was. So many people. But the one thing I've got to mention, because you've heard enough about the dinner, is I was putting chairs away in the closet, and a man walks in, and I looked at him and I said, geez, I'm sorry, we're just closing up, you know, everything's put away. He said, that's all right. I forgot about the dinner. And he said, I ate at home, but I'm coming to bring you the donation that I would have given you had I come to the dinner. And I felt so bad. I said, oh, you don't have to do that. And he said, yes, I do, because I want you to save this hospital.
Amen.
And I felt so bad, I never even asked the man's name. I was so, I know, big man. So surprised that someone would come after they ate at home just to give us money, you know. But really, we thank you everybody who worked, everybody who cooked, and everybody who ate. It was fabulous. Maybe we'll even think of doing it again.
I have a question about the letter.
Okay.
Are we looking, is it address specific? Do we only want people from this peninsula or from the 4 towns signing the letter? Is there a rule that it has to be only people from these addresses, or can we get people from all over?
I think if it's a summer person and they live in Florida, you know, I've been having them put down Florida and summer resident, but I've had people from Jefferson and Damariscotta and, yeah.
I have people who come to visit me in the summer who don't live here, but they are keenly interested in keeping the hospital, and they've been writing to the Maine Attorney General. Why not?
Any tourist that comes here in the summertime for the day, I mean, they're interested in this.
Yeah. They have to break away.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Yeah.
We want to keep the hospital home, but let's not get carried away.
How about relatives, of people that live here? Would that be acceptable? Because I know my children are very interested in keeping it open. For me.
Anybody who's invested in this hospital, let them hear from them.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Gregory would agree with that. Anything else on the volunteer?
No, I'm done.
All right. Next, BRAS. Anything new, Scott?
Nothing new.
Okay. Thank you. Next is financial and fundraising.
Well, can we go back to ambulance service just for a second? And I just have a question for Scott.
Okay.
The Booth Bay Harbor is still under the process of having a budget review, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we met with them last week and then they had some additional questions to follow up with. So we're coming back next Wednesday to do a follow-up meeting with them to talk about the impact of the subsidy request to their budget.
The town of Booth Bay met and went over Booth Bay Region Ambulance Services budget. And although there was tons of questions and lots of dialogue, that's about where it ended. The ambulance service could easily answer all the questions that we had.
And I would like to put in also that they came over and spoke to the selectmen and our budget committee again. Long, excellent dissertation you guys brought forth, and at this point you've got support of the selectmen and the budget committee when we go to town meeting, so that's a positive.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you did a great job, so I think we're looking forward to next week too.
Thank you.
All right. Financial and fundraising.
In your information, all there is an agenda in the printout of the account at the town of Booth Bay for the St. Andrews Task Force. But I did misspeak last time we met. The posting for the final payment of to iVantage is not in there. I didn't realize it at the time when I spoke, but there is still that 1 quarter payment that needs to be made. But it's scheduled for this next warrant that the selectmen will entertain. I acted a little bit unilaterally earlier today. There was some email correspondence with Ralph Cabarro about the next Tuesday's meeting, and I think we want to have him available, but he's going to have cost and expense incurred. And I said, they can only add to the meeting to have Ralph there. So I said, please come and then submit his expenses, and we'll pay that out. While we had money, it seemed like a good expense. But I guess I'm looking for forgiveness.
It's often good to act and beg for forgiveness.
Yes, sir.
And how much is the total of the last payment?
I think it's about 8,000. It just simply
81.25.
yeah, that sounds about right. It's ended up being 4 payments to add up the total cost of $35,000.
Okay, so that'd eat up about half of our balance.
So we've raised $80,015.12, and we've spent $63,701.24.
Yeah, for a balance of $16,313.88.
And out of that comes the 81.25,
That's correct.
which brings us down to 81.88, plus Ralph's expenses from the community.
Right.
All right.
Somebody should take him out to dinner,
Yeah.
so he doesn't have to charge the town.
Are there any more payments due to Ralph?
Other than the cost of him participating
Yeah,
in the next
so-
meeting, no.
That paid in full, huh?
That's correct.
Was that both accounts, the second opinion? No, that was
No,
just,
that was just the one that the
just the
town.
town, the one the town has, okay.
And I think all the fundraising efforts have been going to feeding the Second Opinion Fund recently. But you'll see that there's still activity. We're still receiving donations up through today. I just printed this, well, not today, last week. we're still crediting the account, which means people are still making donations to the town-based account. They've tailed off a little bit as we funnel most of the donations to the Second Opinion Fund, but people are still making donations.
And these donations, I'm just looking at the sheet here, are anywhere from $30 to $450.
Right, the detail you don't get in this report is that when we actually credit the account, we do it all at once. So that could be multiple donations all credited at once.
Great. Thank you, and thank you to the town of Booth Bay for continuing to keep track of all of this. I know it's adding on to your everyday duties, but
It's actually relatively easy, and the town of Booth Bay is glad that we can do some things to support the task force that really are minimal cost of it.
Question, what's the next step as far as Julius is concerned?
I think it's safe to say that we're hoping right now that the AG's office is gonna get involved in this process actively, and if that's the case, we probably won't have to make use of Julius too much. Is that a fair assessment?
That's exactly what we'd like to
What's
see.
the possibility of that?
Well, I guess we'll find out. We've had another presentation done today, and we'll hopefully get some kind of a reaction from them in the near future. And we'll have a better idea of what we're looking at from there. So keep your fingers crossed for the AG's office to say, yeah, we'd like to take this on.
The clock is continuing to tick.
I think we all are really aware of that.
And Julius has been pretty impressed with how the community responds, and said probably the next asset we should be looking at is our connections to our federal representatives, and trying to use some of their influence. And we do have a pretty diverse group of people with plenty of reach in the Booth Bay region, so if you have those kind of connections with our federal representatives, now's the appropriate time to use them.
Press the button.
You know, I'd be happy to brief any of their aides.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to old business, the community information meetings. We held the public officials briefing earlier this evening, and we have our full public meeting coming up next Tuesday, February 26th at 6:30 at the Booth Bay Region Elementary School Gymnasium. I'm sure we're all hoping for another packed house.
And I just want to get on the record, folks, that I will not be there because I'm having surgery the day before, so I probably won't be fit for the public setting, but if I can crawl in there, I will.
Lame excuse.
We had a patient today, the other day, when we were at Bridgeton. He came through on a gurney with bottles hanging and everything, and spoke to us and was very charming. We could do the same thing.
I shall give that due consideration.
That would really be impressive.
Considering the top.
That'll draw sympathy.
All right, put the pressure on me now.
So there's one thing I would like to ask. I know we'll talk some more about logistics privately, but since so many people have worked on the presentation, volunteers have been involved in it and want to be there to answer questions, and we will have more time for discussion. I'll be able to pace it, and I'm going to break it up, so we'll have some discussion throughout. I would like to request that some of those people sit up front along with the task force, so that we, have kind of the combined group of task force and volunteers.
Absolutely. And this has never been about us. It's always been about all you guys, so. I mean, I'm not gonna be there, but that's my thought.
We're gonna get you there.
Well, unless you bring me on.
We'll figure it out.
Make sure the gurney is labeled St. Andrew's Hospital.
All right. Our next meeting is officially the full public meeting, so that's next Tuesday, and our next regular meeting will be March 5th, which is the first Tuesday in March.
have we heard anything more about
No.
the chamber sponsor the event? Is there any update on that?
There isn't any update right now. I know that we attended a meeting that was, so that Stuart Smith and I attended a meeting with the chamber and some representatives from Lincoln County Healthcare to discuss this meeting that they're trying to facilitate. And it's not a chamber meeting, it is, they're trying to be a third-party sponsor of a meeting. And we discussed that we would be there, and then we encourage more public type meetings, and kind of weighed in on it, but we didn't divert any of their energy in holding the meeting. I think they want to see what we do with this and educate people on the Ivantage report. They want to see where that goes first. So I think I had gotten an email at the 11th hour before this meeting about the status of that, but I didn't read it yet. So.
Alright, so
Okay.
it's safe to say that the 27th is
It's
not on
it's
the
not on the
calendar.
table right now.
All right. Any public comment this evening? Tom?
I'd like to say something, that there are several of us that are concerned about the question of, this question of what's next. And it seems to me that what constantly seems to emanate from the table is the notion that we're concerned that Lincoln County Healthcare made the wrong decision and we want them to change their mind. My own view is that it's much less important what decision got made than who made it. And in my opinion, for all practical purposes, we might, if there were a group that was representative of the community that made a decision to close St. Andrews, why, that would be that. It would be the community making the decision. So in my opinion, the issue or the question is not whether they made the right or the wrong decision, which is what an awful lot of the conversation has been about. But in my opinion, the real question is who made the decision? And that's the crux of the matter, in my opinion, and that gets back to this question of to whom is that is responsible for making decisions with respect to the future of St. Andrews. And my concern is very particularly that there was one slide shown earlier that demonstrated the decrease in inpatient check-ins for St. Andrews. I mean, it's dropped precipitously in the last couple of years. And the last year shown was 2011, when there were almost none. Once that happens, it doesn't make any difference who's running the hospital. It's going to have to close because its income is gone. And therefore, Lincoln County, in my opinion, if I were running Lincoln County Healthcare, what I would do is wait as long as possible and then announce that, oh yes, we made the wrong decision, we're going to keep the hospital open and continue to strip it, which is what's been happening. And my concern is that it seems to me that the decision that all that counts is keeping the hospital open leaves open that path of attack on the interests of the people of the community. That's my concern.
I think it's safe to say that two things on that. One, I think all of us agree that in a perfect world, we're gonna keep that hospital open where you have a new system, a new forum for who is in control. In other words, we bring in a new set of trustees who actually represent St. Andrews Hospital. But short of that, if we don't get there, you look around this room, and I don't think anybody in here is gonna let them come in if they say, okay, we've changed our mind, we're gonna keep it open. Or they're just gonna go back quietly into their homes and let them run this hospital into the ground.
Well, where was everybody last year is my point.
It was real simple. They were living a life of just oblivion. It was there, it was a given thing. There was no consideration that it was ever gonna close until all of a sudden they announced on July 31st, oh, by the way, we're gonna turn this into an urgent care facility. And then it woke up the sleeping giant. And it's done what we've seen here today. And I don't think any of us are going back to sleep again real soon.
You know, you ask where were they, Tom? That was obvious to me when they packed the elementary school the first time, where they were. Everybody was upset once the word got out what was happening. And that's why we're all here. And that's why we all continue to do what we're doing.
But that first meeting, it included seasonal residents.
Yeah.
The second meeting was better attended with just locals.
Mostly locals, you're right.
You're exactly right. Dr. Oliphant?
Yeah. One thing I wanted to point out, when they showed the precipitous drop-off, that was intentional. It was done by Lincoln County on purpose. It's a matter of how you classify the patients. As of April 1st, 2010, St. Andrews essentially quit admitting acute care patients. So when they show the Medicare discharges dropping off like that, it was because Lincoln County Health had decreed that no patients would be admitted and therefore no one was getting discharged. They were admitting skilled nursing patients, which as far as I can tell, do not count on the Medicare discharges. So there may have been bodies in the beds, but that drop-off was planned. It was not, no matter what Lincoln County tries to say, it was not a lack of use by the community. It was due to a FedEx policy in the emergency room. So you can't really rely on those figures for how much the hospital has been used since April 1st, 2010. It's just a matter of which pocket is the money coming out of from the payers, the acute care pocket or the skilled pocket. And you can't start into the skilled pocket until they've been acute care for 3 days, and they had to have that someplace else.
If you look at the Navigant report, all their data is focused on 3 years, a 3-year trend. Well, if you go
Yeah,
back,
naturally.
if you go back 5 years, it's a very different trend.
Mhm. And it's an engineered trend.
Okay.
Well, I think I'd like to come back to the governance question that Tom keeps raising. And in terms of the strategy, you mentioned, wanting to continue to sit at the table with Lincoln County Health Care and Maine Health. I'd like to propose that we sit at the table with Maine Health. I think we might get further.
I don't disagree with you, Patty, but the bottom line is they're gonna play, we don't make these decisions. Lincoln County Healthcare's making decisions.
But what-
All we do is review it and
Right, but what we're basically saying is, in the presentation we just put together, is things were okay until 2007, 2008, and the last 4 years have been the 4 years where they have driven all of our services away. And that was after they merged the boards and the management team. So if we want to redress that and still stay a subsidiary of Maine Health, which I think Maine Health would like us to be,
can't imagine they wouldn't.
then I think we should talk to Maine Health about, could we have a different board?
I can honestly say, my opinion only, you guys can agree with me or disagree if they want. When we're sitting at the table with Lincoln County Health, we're sitting at the table with Maine Health as well.
I still
Oh,
think
sure.
we should request a separate meeting.
Put it in, I suppose.
Based on the fact that that is with whom the definitive agreement was made in the first place.
Right.
As I look at it, and maybe I'm naive, but I think that Lincoln County Health is a creation of Maine Health. We weren't
Yes.
involved in that so much. So we might consider saying, we appreciate the fact that you've got this little middleman here, but we made the agreement with you. Why can't we sit down with you?
Well, I can tell you that the last few times we've met, Bill Karen, who is the CEO of Maine Health, has been at the table, so.
Does he participate in the discussion?
He leads.
I think that's a mild way of putting it.
Well, he's calling the shots,
Yeah.
Everyone knows that.
Certainly, everybody in Lincoln County Health knows that.
Yeah.
Well, we know it too, don't we?
Yeah.
I certainly do.
Yeah.
I was late to the meeting, so, did anybody mention anything about, the article in the Coastal Journal on last week?
Yeah.
Nothing?
Nothing's been discussed.
No,
No, that's-
you weren't late to the meeting, you were early for this meeting.
So we had two meetings.
There were two meetings.
We're out of a loop.
Yeah, there were two meetings tonight. One started at 6:30 and it was a public information session for
All
the
the select.
boards of selectmen, a few of whom came. And then this meeting was scheduled to start at 7:30. So have at it.
Well, I'm really bothered about the article in the Coastal Journal dated February 14th, just last week.
Current issue.
What?
Current issue.
Yes. Mr. Donovan was very forthright in stating that LCH has decided to proceed as planned in October and close the ER as planned. And also that there is no, as far as they're concerned, there's no new information from the iVantage report, that they
That's
haven't
absolutely
learned
true.
anything new. he
No.
said. To me, it is apparent that the task force is being totally taken in by LCH. And it's useless to continue meeting with them when they keep saying, you know, we're on track, we know what we're doing, we're still planning to, you know, close the ER in October. So I don't think it's sensible to, I'm naive, but I don't think it's sensible to keep meeting with them. It seems like if we're missing some of the facts, you know, about where the bones are buried, then isn't that what Julius is for?
What I would say to that is, when you fight a war, you often fight it on more than one front. And I want to give Lincoln County Healthcare and Maine Health every opportunity
They've had every opportunity.
we will continue to give them. It doesn't hurt us in what we're doing to sit at the table with them and talk to them. It doesn't mean we can't be doing other things on other fronts, but I want to give them every opportunity to come to their senses and do the right thing. And I think it's a very reasonable thing to do. If they don't, then we'll take other avenues. You know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. You know, we can do one thing with them and we can be doing something else as well. But it doesn't hurt for us to continue to have conversation with them.
They've been saying all along, we're keeping up with our plan of doing things. But in the meantime, we hired Julius, we hired Scott and Ralph. Each of them folks did their thing and gave us the reports that they gave us. We've been meeting with Lincoln County Health, Maine Health, and even while they've been saying, this is what we're doing, this is what we're gonna keep doing, and nothing's gonna change, things have changed. They're looking at the licenses for the beds. They've changed their original date when they were gonna close everything. Originally, it was gonna be here in just over a month. Now it's October 1st.
Yes.
And in the same statements that Mr. Donovan has been making and saying that they saw nothing new, they also said that they saw 3 things in our report that they agree with.
Yes.
So if they saw nothing new, then there wouldn't be anything for them to agree with. So they did see some new information there. They need to understand that we still want to talk. I've chatted with a couple of the board members of Lincoln County Health and said, we still want to talk to you.
I feel like,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry,
I don't trust him, and I just feel like they are keeping us going with that very thing.
But again, they're not stopping us
And
from
that
doing
they're
other
gonna do
things.
that until all of a sudden, it's gonna be October 1st. And they're gonna say, well, you knew this all along.
But like Mike said earlier on, they had a very nice conversation with the Attorney General today. Hopefully something.
Are they aware of that?
What?
Are they aware of that?
I think there's very little that we're doing that they're not aware of.
They got to the Attorney General before we got to the.
The thing is, you know, as far as the IQ report is concerned, it really didn't tell us anything that we didn't know. The value of the Ivantage report is when you tie it to Julia's legal opinion, you get his opinion supported with the Ivantage report. And that creates a very strong picture.
So it does.
Here's my take on the whole situation. If they don't agree with us, they hope that we're gonna go away.
Yes.
Speaking for myself, I ain't going anywhere.
I'm not going
And I'm
anywhere.
gonna see this right straight through, like I said from
Until
the
what?
beginning.
Until Julius, until Donovan decides that the smartest thing he can possibly do is wait until the last possible moment, in my opinion, it will be shortly before the meeting, the vote on Southport, and then to decide at that time that, oh, he made a mistake, that the thing to do is to keep the hospital open. Then what? What will we do in that case, is the question.
Well, we'll have a whole new tack, won't we? I mean, if they give us that position that we're gonna, it's not closing, it's gonna stay as it is, then it would become incumbent upon all of us to be more vigilant, to stay on task and make sure that the changes are being made that makes it a viable hospital. In other words, we don't pack up our tents and go home and go, boy, look at us, we've won. You'll say, okay, we've won a huge battle, but the war would go on.
Well, I think that what has happened is that we have educated ourselves in a very strong way. And let's say that they did turn around and say, okay, we're going to keep the hospital open. I think then we start a concerted public effort to invite them to invite us into the mix.
Absolutely.
So that we can have some input about what we want for healthcare in the community. And we need to rally the community to support and use what we ask for.
Absolutely.
And if they can't afford to do it, then we need to look into ways that we can make it affordable.
To begin with, we need our own board of trustees.
Absolutely.
We do.
And we need to be separate from Lincoln County Health.
But I have to be honest, if the hospital doesn't stay open, any of that won't matter.
The point is that they've stripped the hospital and are continuing to do so. What happened to the endowment fund? What happened to all the bequests that have been made by people who have passed?
Made to that hospital.
And made specifically to St. Andrew's Hospital.
And let's not forget the employees. I mean, right now, that is not a tenable place to work. Everybody is terrified and not comfortable. I mean, the difference between the way it feels when you walk into any of the hospitals we visited where everybody's confident and they've got a job and they've got strong management teams and they're all pitching in, and the way St. Andrews used to be, which is, you just felt you were in a big hug when you walked in there. And there are still the same wonderful people there, but they're terrified. And we can't continue that. That's just not okay.
don't undersell yourselves as the customer base of this
Right.
this hospital. And I know that you look at Patty's very polished PowerPoint, and there's no way you can't take that information in and start scrutinizing the way our hospital's decisions have been made and the rationale placed on how those decisions have been made. That's an investment that's going to be made in this community for a long time. And look at the AG's bill about open meetings and open meeting minutes. I can easily see if that bill is passed, this group is now sitting in a different spot come those meetings, and is going to have a lasting effect on healthcare, how healthcare is delivered in this region. You're the customer base of this hospital, and eventually that pressure is something that the hospital will have to adhere to. Otherwise, they're just going to lose all of their customers, and then they'll be in a worse position than they think they already are in now.
Mike?
Isn't it true that the formal task force, you folks, gave Lincoln County and Maine Health until March 31st to review the Ivantage report?
We had asked for a reply from them by that.
Yeah,
time.
that's,
And they've given us
They've
that.
already given
They've
us
given
a
us
reply.
that.
and they've already formally replied.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're actually pushing up the clock, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing.
It didn't take them long to give us that reply either.
Well, and it's something I want to clarify, because I've heard it and I've actually repeated it. The report was given to Mr. Donovan. How long after that was he quoted in the paper as saying there was nothing new?
20
Is that same
before
day?
he
Yeah.
got it.
Was it? So Mr. Donovan had that report for a matter of hours and then rendered his decision.
Well, I think we can take it better than that, is that we sat around the table and handed them to us, and they started ripping it out. We literally, there that is, and they were, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. I mean,
Who was the they?
So doesn't that remind you of the scene in the Judge Roy Bean movie where he says, "We'll give him a fair trial, then we'll hang him"?
and we'll hang it.
Isn't that what happened?
Well, because
You know, sure, we'll listen to you, give us your report,
yeah.
here's the report, no thanks.
See, this is the problem, it's not a problem, but it's the fact of the situation. We operate in a completely open way. People come in here
They don't.
and they don't have to, and they're not going to. The fact that this meeting that was planned with the local, what am I saying, Chamber of Commerce is not all of a sudden not happening, I'm not terribly surprised. If I am Jim Donovan, Bill Karen, I'm not sure I want to run a meeting with all of you in front of me. I mean, you know, again, I mean, unless I've got a quick exit, I mean, I understand that,
They
because
did that tonight, they made a quick, they didn't put any investment here.
but,
Well, we're very glad that we're here. I
but
think
my
they
point is
never-
this, is that
they made
it's
effort.
so difficult to try to have a meeting between open public officials and this private entity that, you know, operates in a cloak of darkness. And I look forward, I hope, I pray that they will do a meeting where you can all come and ask questions of them, and it would be great.
Well, you know, it's interesting, the timing on the presentation of the Ivantage report, which you say you turned over to them, and I'm assuming the them was Donovan, Karen, and who else?
For a
The board of trustees.
Okay, it wasn't their whole board.
Oh, no.
So the
No.
board didn't have a chance to react to that before the public response was, no, this is, you know, this has no value, there's nothing new here. So it didn't even go before their board.
They did the following week.
Yeah,
But that was after they
That-
already.
that
Well, it
was-
was actually out publicly, I think it was on the register the next day, you know?
But what I'm saying is, you know, they're just not even giving it board time.
Bill?
I think this kind of discussion is really important for us to be having, and I think we should all be expressing our true feelings about, you know, what we're thinking. And I see my role and why I think that we all keep saying we really want to meet with Lincoln County Healthcare and we really want to meet with Maine Health is we have this report, we have these great ideas, we have this energy, and we're seeing other hospitals that have energy and are doing successful things. We want to make this information and this energy and these ideas accessible to Lincoln County Healthcare. And when we say we don't want you in the leadership role at all, we don't see you, our vision of this hospital is without you. When we say things like that, it creates a very palpable barrier to the fact that they don't want to come and sit down because they think we don't see them in the future of St. Andrew's Hospital. But if we can make it so that we're working together with Lincoln County Healthcare and we're saying, you can give us these wonderful things that all these other hospitals are delivering to their customers. If we can say, we have these ideas and we want you to share them and listen to them, I see that as being the path of least resistance. And the day that they say that the hospital is not closing, it's no longer a war. It's not that we've won the battle and we're continuing with the war. In my mind, it's no longer a war. It's then we're working together to rebuild the pillaged village. And that's what I see our role as the task force. And I think your role as the people who are doing all the work is very important to spur them and to spur the community into pushing them to the table rather than maybe pushing them away from the picture altogether.
We are at cross purposes with them.
I think that's not totally true. I think that
Yes.
I think that we all want good health care
Yeah.
for this community, and I think that that's what they've said very publicly, and
They
that's
want to
what,
close the hospital. They've said it.
Well, I think they want to make money.
I'm
And
sorry.
I think they want to make money. And they see
Yeah, money.
the avenue of making money is, let's get rid of something that we think we're losing money. Well, I think when we put it, and I say we, Patty, because I didn't do anything. But when we put it in perspective that there are other avenues, you could make money if you put on a different perspective. That we could gain back their attention, because we want them to make money too.
Yeah.
And we just want them to make money with the services that are located here. There are overlapping interests. But I don't think they want to close the hospital. They just want to make money.
And they don't care about the hospital being open. Let me quote,
don't care about
we talked about Julius and his, he was quite excellent report. Let me read a sentence from him regarding closing of the hospital, the decision they made to close the hospital. He said, quote, "This is a violation of law and a breach of trust with the state, St. Andrews supporters and benefactors, and the Boutte Peninsula Committee," end quote. In my opinion, that says it all. And
You're ignoring.
and I see no more reason to sit down at the table with him than I would feel obligated to sit down at a burglar who broke into my house and stole my valuables. I mean, I don't think that the way to handle that situation is to be nice to that person. It's instead to get the justice system on the case and have him arrested. That's what I think should be done.
if you asked that man nicely to give you back your things, don't you think you would get them a lot quicker
That doesn't stop him from being a
than the
thief.
justice system?
He's still a thief.
I'm worried about the October 1 date in that scenario.
Patty?
I wanted to build on what Valerie's saying. I don't agree with what you're saying, but I hear the sentiment that is coming from, that you're coming from. And I wanted to contrast the way Lincoln County Healthcare is structured vis-a-vis St. Andrews and Miles, and what is happening with Bridgeton and Rumford in the Central Maine Health system. It's really quite interesting because Bridgeton and Rumford have a shared management team. And they each have boards, separate community boards. And the shared management team works really collaboratively together. They go back and forth, you know, they're 2 days at one hospital, 2 days at another hospital, 1 day in Lewiston. The doctors go back and forth between the hospitals, they all share the same specialists. They work really collegially together, but one of the things they point out is that the cultures of those two hospitals are completely different. Bridgeton is has a big summer population, a lot of more wealthy people. Rumford is more of a blue collar place. They're very conservative. They didn't want the brand new hospital. They just said, give us a little wing to add on. And it's all driven by, as Margaret said, it's driven by what the community wants. And the reason is because they each have their own board, and that shared management is very, very lean. They don't have $1 million of overhead associated with that shared management team. Those are just the people getting their regular salary to be, the director of nursing at this hospital, the director of nursing at that hospital, and oh, by the way, I'm working at 2 hospitals. And it's highly efficient. And it works really well, and the people love working there. And they're getting all kinds of great synergies. So that's the model I think we should convince Maine Health that that would be a much better model for us and Miles rather than what they've done.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I agree with what you said, and I think what Valerie said was well said as well. But if they're not at the table, nothing's going to be accomplished. And that's why we need them back at the table.
Well, and how did we lose being at the table? Are they the ones that only they issued the invitation?
No. In fact, I've had a conversation with a couple of board members and said, we need to get back at the table and sit down again.
And is that
There have been no favorable responses brought forward.
I mean, speaking for myself, if the point comes where we stop talking to each other, it's because they have walked away. We won't walk away. We're trying to do what's best for this peninsula. And I still think the best outcome we can hope for, where we're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars taking them to court, is if we can get them to agree that, yeah, okay, we'll reassess this. We will look at this thing and maybe, we'll give you some more time. We'll think about it. We'll keep the hospital open and
Give us our board.
and ideally, give us our board, but in the meantime, keep it open and make sure that they're starting to do some of the things we're asking them to do. Not just keeping it open just for the sake of keeping it open doesn't serve any purpose. We've got to start doing some things that's going to revitalize this hospital and bring it back. And like Jim said, if we can convince them that you can do this, keep it in the black, then it's a win-win situation. It's a win for them, it's a win
How
for
much did
us.
they lose last year?
A report just came out the other day, and I can't remember. In fact, I'm not sure it did. It may have been in the black. See, the other
It's
thing is,
already in the black,
Right.
is the point.
right. And the other thing that people have not talked about is that a lot of these years when they said, well, look, it lost money. Well, the state of Maine was not paying what it was supposed to pay.
That's right.
So,
That has nothing to do with profit and loss, that has to do with receivables,
well,
which are
but the
posted
bottom
as-
line is it certainly comes across as being in the red, when in point of fact, if you'd received the payments from the state of Maine, which they're now receiving, well, suddenly you're in the black.
You might have receivables that are coming in, but if you don't receive them, or you spend more money, you're in the red. Dr. Oliphant.
The thing that everybody needs to remember also is that the physicians are the ones who ultimately will admit people to the hospital, who will, the surgeons are the ones who will operate on people if we try to restore the services. And as long as Lincoln County owns the doctors, they can say, well, our doctors don't want to go back to doing acute care down here. The current trend is for hospitalists, which most of the patients hate, but it does eliminate a lot of the hassle and middle of the night admissions that the doctors put up with. And their doctors have now been, to some extent, they haven't been doing acute care admissions, just skilled admissions, for almost 3 years now. It's a much nicer life. I mean, it really is. And the Miles doctors don't do hospital, they have the hospitalists there, but on April 1st, 2010, when they stopped doing acute admissions, they weren't gonna bring hospitalists to St. Andrews because there weren't enough, and several of the St. Andrews doctors I know voted against continuing to do acute care because they were tired of doing the admissions. It does get tiresome. For a while, the ER docs were helping us by writing holding orders when they admitted the patient in the middle of the night and you went down there first thing in the morning and finished your paperwork. But otherwise, you got to roll out, you gotta go down there, you gotta talk to the patient, review all the, and write up the history and physical, and that's gonna take you at least an hour. And it's a lifestyle thing for the doctors. If their doctors rebel, they can say, well, our doctors don't want to do this.
But I guess my question for that would be, don't take us the wrong way.
I know.
Isn't it part of the job?
Not anymore.
Shouldn't it be?
Hospitalists are the current trend who are in the hospital, they take care of the inpatients, they do shifts like ER docs. 10 or 12-hour shifts, turn them over to the next one. For you as a patient, this means that you get a whole new doctor every 12 hours. If you're lucky, you'll get the same guy 2 or 3 days in a row for day shift. I believe it goes with the territory, but I can't do all the admissions for St. Andrews all by myself. I can't do it 24/7, not anymore. Maybe when I was young and foolish, but not now. And that was one of the reasons I quit doing it. I did skilled admissions for 6 months, and it was just as much work, less pay, same amount of aggravation, and it just wasn't, I could have done some acute admissions too, but I would have been the only one doing them. And I didn't want to be on call for my patients 24/7, forever. And I didn't like the idea that someone could come in and just because I didn't happen to be on call that night, get shipped to Miles. But you've got to understand that they own the docks, and even if you say, I want to go to St. Andrews, sorry, we have no one to admit you. So, they have to be persuaded to do a model that is viable in a personnel status. I don't see why they couldn't send the hospitals for Miles down here, just the way they do the ER docs.
Bridgeton had this, they went through 2 years of agony converting to a hospitalist model. And the doctors were upset about it, and they really had a lot of angst. But they soldiered on, and they now have a hospitalist program. The trade-off is that the doctors have agreed to add in a couple of after-hours clinics in their general practice, so that if you've got a fever and you're not feeling well, and it's not an emergency room sort of thing, you can go into to see a doctor as an outpatient, just pick up some extra hours that way. And so that was what they traded off, and now everybody's happy.
Yeah, and their hospitals are there round the clock.
Round the clock,
They're not-
so the doctors don't have to be involved in the minutia of admitting and, all that sort of thing.
The Miles hospitalists are there around the clock.
Yeah.
And the Miles doctors are very happy. The Miles doctors never have to go to the hospital anymore.
Yeah, and they
They do go to the trustees meetings though.
Well, only as invited. There's a,
I'd like to,
Dan?
you mentioned that if the relationship between the task force and Lincoln County Health dissolves, you want them to walk away, not us.
I did.
Question is, how will you know?
When we say, we'd like you to meet with us next week, and they go, we don't think so.
Well, my point is that they may have already done so.
They may have done. They may have done. Absolutely.
And another example, they formed a committee, some kind of group, to oversee the transition,
Yeah.
you know, from St. Andrews to skilled nursing or whatever. And these meetings were to be open meetings. Yeah? Well, have you been to one?
Who said they were supposed to be open meetings?
Well, there was a big deal in the register that said, you know, the people that are on that committee wouldn't be on it unless they were open to the public. And, yeah.
I don't have an answer to that question.
And the point that I'm trying to make is that, you know, the leopard doesn't change his spots. Yeah, they don't believe in open meetings. They may want to, they may publicly say they're open meetings, but nobody knows when they meet or where.
But you can drop by anytime. Jane, let's hear that.
Well, I think in the beginning they said that they were gonna respond to the breach of trust, and they would respond to the advantage, but they weren't gonna respond. They'd do it all at once. Is there a way to get them back to the table to get their response to the breach of trust paper, which we've not heard anything from? Is that a reasonable approach?
They haven't responded to Julie's report at all.
That's right. And they said they would, but they wouldn't do it in segments. This is a one-shot deal. We're gonna do this all at once. Well, they've kind of slid right over that. So it seems to me that that's a legitimate way to get them back to the table. We'd like a response to that.
Certainly will show up.
Yep. Agree with that. Mike?
Two thoughts, hopefully quickly. Brings to mind what's going on over in Conway,
Yeah.
where Maine Health is bidding to take over Memorial Hospital there. And I'd urge folks here who have friends and relatives in the Conway area to tell them to view one of our meetings. These are available on the internet on Boothbay Region Channel 7. Just Google that. You can watch any of our meetings. If anyone in Conway associated with Memorial Hospital is considering linking up with Maine Health, watch a couple of these meetings and then reconsider.
Yeah, you better reconsider.
This is what the folks in Conway are facing in the coming years, exactly what we're going through right now.
I believe there's a former Boothbay resident who's a reporter for the Conway paper.
My second point, quickly, I don't think we're gonna walk away, I don't think Lincoln County Health is gonna walk away. They've made a conciliatory remark about doing 3 things over the hospital or using the Gregory beds and so on. Unless they save the critical access hospital status and the ER, we're not done yet. We may want to negotiate how many beds, we may want to negotiate how that ER is staffed, we may want to negotiate several things. But without the critical access and the ER, we're not done. They can talk all they want about how they're going to use the building. If they're not using the building as a critical access hospital, we're here.
Yeah.
Last one. Jane?
I think I'm too tired.
I know I am.
I know, this meeting is very long, but I did want to do a presentation on the George Epstein resignation as a trustee from the board at Memorial Hospital in New Hampshire. And when we were at Bridgeton Hospital Tuesday or Monday, what day was it?
I don't know.
Makes no difference. They said they thought another 2 people had followed that, so had followed his lead and had resigned from the board. But I think it's too long to get into this tonight. This has been a very long meeting, I think. But I think in a way to educate the people in this town and to educate ourselves about this matter. There are more than one way, as you said, Smith. We can come from all different angles with this. And I do have the name of the reporter, and he does come from here, and he could be emailed, and the Board of Trustees, I think, should be alerted. And they're going through exactly the same thing that we are. And before everybody leaves, I think it was Mr. Michon, he came to my house with 20 letters this week. This is so valuable, this information that he gave to me. It's called The Legal Obligation of a Not-for-Profit Board. And it's really tremendous. And a governance resource. We can talk about it a little more. Let's not get into it too much tonight, but educate yourself. If our trustees, I wished we had a George Epstein on our board, is what I wished. I wish that had happened for us, because they're having to slow down, they're having to stop, they're having to think about what they're doing over there. And we need to encourage them. And we can't just fight this battle here for us, whether we win or we lose. If our neighbor's in trouble with the same thing, we have an obligation to fight there too. So, we'll adjourn early, but pass this, I'd like you each to take a copy of this, because this was excellent. I don't know where you got it off the internet, but I appreciate it. And Sue Mello, it might be nice for you to research a little bit of that too.
The only,
You have,
the
okay.
only disturbing thing about what's happened in North Conway is that 3 members of their board resigned over this issue, thereby giving up 3 no votes.
Yeah, right.
You know,
That's right.
and I'm sure they've been replaced, because these are self-perpetuating boards. They've probably been replaced with 3 board members who will vote in favor of it. That's unfortunate.
Just like us.
Did we have any board members that voted no?
We don't know.
We don't know that. I asked that, how many?
We had board members who resigned.
Who resigned
How many?
in protest, you know, I don't know. But
Dr. Barker.
One.
Right. The rest are sitting there doing nothing.
One thing about it, if any of you are computer savvy, if you Google George Epstein, S-T-E-I-N, North Conway, you will pull up the
November 14th, Wednesday, is the headline, George Epstein.
Yeah, but if you Google that, you will find this article that he wrote, and it's very enlightening. You really, it's
And I wrote, didn't I write on the top, okay, right on the top of this, I did write this. I wrote Eric Isley. Eric Isley, his father is Mr. Isley, who's down at the framing shop. And this is his son, who is a reporter for the Conway Daily Sun. And I think I wrote that email address on the top of this paper. So if you feel so inclined, you could email him and inform him, but also the Board of Trustees, the chairperson for the Board of Trustees should be well informed about what's going on. So we have such great writers here and people who care, so let's share with our neighbor.
You're right. Thank
That was awesome.
Everybody remember, we've got the meeting next Tuesday night down at the elementary school.
Please give me feedback.
It'd be great if we packed the building.
Okay, it is.
Thank you all for coming out tonight, and
Thank you
hopefully
so much.
the Lady Seahawks are doing well.
That was right.
That's the one thing